Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. My name is Matthew Confer. I have 20 minutes to talk about trends in the world of work. I have 41 slides. So if you're doing the math, that is 1,200 seconds to go through 41 slides. So let's get started. Clicker. There we go. I was once told by somebody that you should start any presentation with a colorful representation of your topic. So what you're looking at right here is a colorful representation of the top trending topics on TikTok this year in the world of work. I am not an avid TikTok user. I am not cool enough for the app or hip enough to figure it out. But what I am a fan of is birthdays. And somebody also told me that a wonderful way to kick off a presentation is to get some audience interaction. So here's what I have. I have 3 products that are celebrating exciting birthdays this year. They're tangentially related to how we all work. So I'm going to throw a product up there on the screen. You guys tell me how old it is. Feel free to throw out a guess. The first product, the original iMac, the colorful sensation. Any guesses? How many years old? 30, 40, 25 is the right answer. All right, the next product is Google, where we go for all of our searches. How long ago was the first Google search? I heard it, and this was a little bit of a trick. Also 25 years old. I promise that the last product is not 25 years old, so here you go. LinkedIn, where we post the new job that we got, and we post our musings about our inspirational talks around work and how we work. How many years old? 16. I think I heard it there. 20 years old. So at this point, I hope you're a little bit engaged. Why trends? So here's the reason for trends. Every year, we work with our clients all around the world to ask them what is impacting your world. We put together an hour-long trends presentation. That's what I've kind of condensed down for you. Who are we? We're a leadership development company that does simulation-based learning for learners all around the world. If you are at all familiar with the game SimCity, the best analogy is SimCity for leadership training. How do you equip managers? How do you equip high potentials? Well, there is a way to do it with a gamified, cohort-based approach to leadership development. If at the end of this talk you are not sick of hearing from me, I host our company's podcast, and in 2019 I had the opportunity to speak on the TED stage, talk entitled Before You Decide About Decision Making. So feel free to check that out. All right, we split the trends presentation this year into 2 topics, trends around where we work and trends around how we work. So we'll start with where we work. And to start the conversation about where we work, I want to talk about a company. This is a company that really revolutionized the work from home world that we all were thrust into in 2020, and they made a bit of news this year. Anybody have a guess what company this is? This company is Zoom. Zoom brought people back to the office this year, and the irony was not lost on the media. What has happened this year? Well, work from home days have started to level out. So this is research that the National Bureau of Economic Advisors does, and it basically looks at what percentage of days do American workers work from home. This number got as high as up into the 60s in 2020. It's now leveled or settled out in the ballpark of about 30%. It might not surprise you, but relatively few workers actually work from home full time. Only about 12% of American workers work from home full time, and 60% of American workers are fully on-site or in an office. And that really speaks to the broader trend. And one of them is an industry trend. Certain industries have a propensity to work from home more frequently. So probably won't surprise the individuals in this room. Information tech workers, finance workers, professional service workers, they have a higher propensity of days that they work from home. LinkedIn does a study every year where they reach out to thousands of LinkedIn users, and they basically ask what is the reason that what are the top factors that you consider when you're thinking about changing jobs? And unsurprisingly, number 1 is compensation and benefits. Number 2, and rapidly going up the list in recent years, is flexibility to work when and where I want. So you have somewhat of a competing thing happening here. You have people moving back to the office. You have relatively few workers actually working from home full time. And you have employees basically telling their employers that if I'm changing jobs, one of the reasons that I'm doing it is flexibility to work where I want. Now, we are a leadership development company, so I can't say that it doesn't bring joy to me that number 4 is opportunities for career growth, and number 5 is opportunities to learn and develop new skills. All right, so you have a sense that there's a little bit of a point here where people have a little bit less flexibility than they had in 2020. So what's happening? Well, what's happening is companies are getting really creative. And who's heard of work from anywhere weeks? Okay, so companies are rolling this out. Basically, this is a set amount of time, usually 2 to 4 weeks, where you can work from anywhere. So let's take a hypothetical example where you have to be in the office 2 to 3 days a week. These are weeks where you can work from anywhere. You don't need to take PTO, and you can go anywhere. And the amount of companies that are rolling this out or talking about it continues to increase, and it's a pretty impressive list of organizations that are thinking about it. Couple of things to note about it. Just stopped working. There we go. Okay. Employees have the opportunity to use the weeks when they're most convenient to them. Most companies just require that you get it approved by a manager or some sort of supervisor approval. What might not surprise you is that a lot of companies are rolling it out. Still not working. There we go. Oh. A lot of companies are rolling it out alongside of more stringent requirements to be in the office. So to give you the example, company was previously saying you could work from home full time, or company was saying you had 1 day a week in the office. Now you have to be in the office 3 days a week, but here's this wonderful opportunity for these work from anywhere weeks. I'll get into a few predictions at the end, but this is one of the things that we're hearing from a lot of our clients around the world. So the big story on where we work is that we're trending a bit differently than we were last year. This is data that looks at how occupied are downtown office buildings across the major metro areas. And the basic story is this. In 2023, we are trending higher than we were in 2022. But the trend is we are leveling off. We are finding some level of equilibrium. And for most of the metro areas, it's at about half occupancy. So we'll see what happens from here, but this is really the story. And one final chart to kind of close it out. This looks at actual Google search data. So what are employees putting into Google search? And what's happened is kind of the pre-pandemic trends have returned. People are giving lunch and learns in the office. People are worried about how they're going to carry their computer to the office. So in some ways, we've hit this equilibrium state, and that's going to be a really interesting thing to see going forward. So that's a little bit about where we work. Let's talk about how we work. No conversation about how we work could happen this year without talking about artificial intelligence. So this looks at the speed to 100 million users, and ChatGPT and other large language models got there unbelievably fast. Who has played around with ChatGPT or a similar large language model? Yeah, exactly. Earlier this year, ChatGPT announced 2 billion website views in a given month. To give you a sense of scale, that would place ChatGPT as one of the top 20 most visited websites in the world. So this is definitely not just a powerful technology. This is something that a lot of workers are utilizing, and I'll show a few stats on that. But I did want to pause at this point and say, no conversation about artificial intelligence cannot talk about the risks and the perils and everything else that comes into it. So from New York to Australia, the mainstream media has posted a ton about all of the risks of artificial intelligence, and I think it's really important to have a conversation about this. It is also really important to give you some context to these headlines. I am by no means saying that there is not a dystopian future for artificial intelligence, but what I am saying is I think it's really important to have a balanced conversation about the power of AI, and also to just level set by saying that people have been worried about AI since basically AI came out. Business Insider asked workers, how familiar are you with ChatGPT and have you used it? And about 60% of American workers said that they're familiar with it and they have used it. They then asked, does your company know that you use ChatGPT? There's a couple of things about this. One, it's fascinating that 62% of people said that they did. The other thing that's fascinating is I would love to talk to the 21% of people who said kind of. I feel like that would just be like a fascinating conversation to figure, like, what do you mean by kind of? Like, my worker kind of know that I use it. They then asked, how do you use ChatGPT at work? And for those of us who have used it, and we're playing around with it a lot in our People Manager simulation. So in our People Manager simulation, you can actually chat one-on-one with the characters that you manage in our simulation. But they asked workers what you use it for. And unsurprisingly, a lot of people say that they use it to make their emails better or to brainstorm. And I think the story here from a trend perspective is we're still figuring it out. I'll make a prediction about this at the end. But to give you a sense of the power of AI, there are a lot of these types of studies that have gone around. One of my favorite is the University of Montana took a very popular test for creativity. And they basically had ChatGPT generate answers to the test, and then they had a test group of students generate answers to the test. And then they submitted everything to the Scholastic testing service, and they didn't tell Scholastic that ChatGPT was involved. And Scholastic ranked ChatGPT in the 99th and 97th percentile, respectively. So this is definitely a technology that burying one's head in the sand is probably not the right approach. And this looks at major tests and how ChatGPT 3.5, which was the previous model, and then ChatGPT 4.0 performs. We are an education company. We deliver our trainings at universities and corporations all around the world. So I'm always interested in how educational institutions are utilizing ChatGPT. One of my favorite examples, and there are many of them, is Harvard rolled out a 24/7 always-on learning assistant. I think it talks about a couple of things. One, it's able to level students up. So students who are ahead of the rest of the class do not have to wait. The learning assistant can actually put additional work in front of them. Students that are behind can actually have different lectures, different work pushed towards them, and the teacher or the administrator kind of gets a report on everything. I think it talks a lot about the power of AI to help all of us from educating our workforce and our students. One of my favorite studies every year is that Microsoft does a work trends report. So they survey tens of thousands of people, and they also look at trillions of interactions with Outlook, with Teams, with Word, with all of those products. This might not surprise this room. The average employee spends about 60% of their time communicating. The average employee only spends about 40% of their time actually creating, and 70% of people basically say, I do not have enough uninterrupted focus time during the day. So how does this all tie to AI? So then Microsoft said, are you worried that AI will take your job? And here's the dystopian stat. 50% of people said, I'm actually pretty worried about that. But the optimistic part is the AI stat that came next. 70% of people said, I would delegate as much of my work as possible to an AI assistant to free me up for the work that you're actually paying me for. And so I think that leads to my final trend of the day, and it's about meetings. So this was a slide from our 2022 presentation that we gave to our clients about trends in the world of work. And it talked about this massive increase in the amount of meetings, amount of double booked, amount of time in meetings. And what happened this year is fascinating. Did anybody hear what Shopify did at the beginning of the year around meetings? Okay, so Shopify, massive Canadian internet retailer. Basically, they said at the beginning of the year, if you have a recurring meeting that has more than 3 people in it, we are canceling it. We're just canceling it. You have to make the decision to rebook that meeting. And then they made some other changes from a meeting perspective. But I think it was fascinating. And what happened? Well, unsurprisingly, employees have spent about 1/3 less time in meetings. And the COO of Shopify said, we deleted over 300,000 hours of meetings, and I've gotten more positive feedback on this change than anything else that I've done. So what does a company do that had this level of reaction early in the year? Well, in the middle of the year, They just completely doubled down on it. And basically what they did was they rolled out what they called a meeting cost calculator. So they used average compensation at the firm, and they said, if you go into Google Calendar and you book a calendar, we are going to show, or book a meeting, we are going to show you this. We are going to show you the estimated cost of the meeting for the firm. And we are going to make you think really hard if these brilliant people are worth $2,000 of the company's time to get together for an hour. We'll see what happens, but here's some general stats on meetings. The average employee attends about 62 meetings a year. 70% of senior managers believe meetings are unproductive. This is a kicker one. 40% of workers say they've attended a meeting that's so long it's made them fall asleep. Over half of remote workers say that the vast majority of meetings just could have been in email. Around 83% of employees spend about a third of their work week in meetings, and 47% of employees consider meetings to be their biggest waste of time at work. So predictions are normally a fool's errand. I tend to like the retrospective look back rather than the prediction, because the predictions tend to bite you in the butt later, but I will make some predictions. So I believe we've reached, and from talking to our clients, we've reached an equilibrium state in terms of office versus hybrid versus remote. The data swung very wildly from 2019 to 2020, and then from 2020 to 2021. And then the data has kind of swung wildly again from 2021 to 2023. My prediction is we're at a little bit more of an equilibrium state, somewhere around 50 to 60% occupancy, somewhere around 12% of workers working from home full time. What that means is companies are going to have to get more creative. And I think work from anywhere weeks is but one iteration, or maybe the first iteration of this. We do 70% of our training virtually. We did 70% of our training in person pre-pandemic. So we had a little bit of a leg up because we were already doing about a third of our simulations fully virtual. We've started to see companies really come back to the office in terms of doing their training or going off-site to a hotel or a conference center to do their trainings, but it's settling right around 30%, and we don't really see it changing from there. Artificial intelligence will be integrated, sometimes very loudly. We're probably going to see a lot more companies with a .ai in their name. It's going to be less of I scroll to ChatGPT. It's going to be products have artificial intelligence very integrated into their product. The buzzword of next year will be responsible AI, ethical AI. That will be the conversation going forward as we all get much more comfortable with it. And I think my final prediction molds a couple of them together. There are already some companies that are starting to play around with this idea of like an AI avatar that joins a meeting for you. So hypothetically, you had 10 people in a recurring meeting. You had 10 people in a recurring meeting. Now you're going to have 3 people in the recurring meeting, but you're going to have 7 AI avatars just kind of sitting there. And the AI avatar, you laugh, but the AI avatar knows what your biggest priorities are. And the AI avatar is going to give you a summary at the end of the meeting of what was discussed. And then the AI avatar is probably going to tell you something to the effect of, in 3 weeks, you should join the meeting. You should skip all of the other ones. But in 3 weeks, they've put something on the agenda that directly attacks one of your main priorities. That's how I think we get around the AI, the backlash on meetings. That's where I think we start to go. This is my favorite quote when it comes to predictions. My main thesis is that predictions are a fool's errand. There's no way that we know what is coming next, and things are moving unbelievably fast. So I think suffice it to say, technology is amazing. It moves unbelievably fast. People are creative, and there is absolutely no idea, and nobody has a prediction about what the ideal home office will look like in the future. As I mentioned, my name is Matthew Confer. There's a QR code on the screen if you or anybody on your team is ever interested in a demo of our leadership simulations, or you want to chat with any of our clients about how they've utilized our offering. We'd be happy to do that. We also offer free play sessions for learning and development and HR leaders to actually experience a truncated version of our people manager simulation, our business acumen simulation, or our cross-functional communication simulation. I have 39 seconds left, so that means I got 41 slides in the 1,200 seconds, so thank you all very much for your time.